Hannah Park, is that also 2 years, Mark? Yeah, 2 years, for a term to go to 12/31/2022.
I couldn't hear who supported that.
Me.
Right.
Okay, Rice. Motion by Worley, support by Rice. All right. Clerk Cody, yes. Trustee Milky,
Yes.
Trustee Hauk,
Yes.
Trustee Lannon,
Yes.
Treasurer Wright,
Yes.
Trustee Worley.
Yes,
Okay. Okay, so then we got the monthly report. We're gonna go over the monthly report.
That's just for your information. If anybody were to have any questions, I'd be happy to entertain them, but I normally don't review that each month.
Trustee Hauk, you have a question?
Yeah, I just have one. Here on the rental inspection, somebody actually tried to build a barn to grow marijuana. That's on the rental inspection area?
Yeah,
Really? It says potential pot operation. Somebody actually tried that?
That's on there, I guess they did.
Wow.
Any other questions for Mark?
Nope, just thought that was kind of weird.
All right, next is Planning Commission and ZBA updates by the Community and Economic Development Director.
Thank you. I will say marijuana is definitely big business. I'm sure we'll see more people attempting to do things they shouldn't, with regards to that. But yeah, that's just going to be an ongoing challenge.
Pretty gutsy.
Yeah. So the Zoning Board of Appeals did not meet in October due to the change with regards to electronic meeting access. That their meeting was in the midst of that transition period from executive orders to the new law that we're now operating under. So they are planning to meet on November 4th, their regular meeting night. We don't have any applications. It will be a training session to become familiar with the new zoning ordinance and their particular provisions in that new ordinance. The Planning Commission did meet on October 20th. They had a special meeting scheduled on October 8th that also got caught by that transition from the executive orders and had to be canceled. So the agenda on October 20th, they had 4 applications. All 4 were site plan applications. They were essentially in pairs. We had 2 site plan applications associated with Chuck McGurk's property on Jens Way, the Westwood condominium, the multi-unit building down there. He proposed to build 2 additions on that building, essentially end caps, you might say, on the west side of that building. And he also proposed an extension of the Jens Way private road that would take it south and then east to connect to Lincoln. Both of those site plans were approved, and we have issued some of the permits associated with those for work to be done. The other site plan pair was for property on Rosewood. This is at Broadway, where Rosewood and Broadway meet on the east side. There was an addition to a medical office building that also required construction of a new parking lot on the other side of the street in order to accommodate employee parking. And that pair of site plans was also approved, and permits again have at least portion of those permits have been issued. And you may have actually seen work already on there in the parking lot in the last few days. These projects were trying to beat the weather and beat the closure of the asphalt and concrete plants, which is why they initially had requested special meetings for them. So they are moving forward. The Planning Commission is also continuing their discussion and look at implementing the master plan and looking at priorities that they'd like to work on as part of that, implementing the goals and policies of the master plan. That's an ongoing conversation, and I do know that they're interested in housing issues in particular, and so we're going to be providing them some information to look at related to that particular topic. But they're looking at the whole action plan element of the master plan. And with that, I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
Anyone have any questions for Rodney? Okay, so we're gonna go to the next item on the agenda, board member report. Does anybody have anything to report at this time? Okay, I will report on some of the election stuff. Okay, so far we've issued about 2,500 AV ballots. 1,800 of them, around 1,800 have been returned, so that leaves about 700 still out. We did receive the high-speed tabulator, and it has been programmed. We ended up loaning the City of Mount Pleasant the extra tabulator that we had because they were in need of a tabulator. They were not going to get their high-speed one in time. And I do want to say a big thank you to Heather Curtis. She's the deputy from Deerfield Township. She's been helping me out while my deputy is off on medical. And I also want to thank Jennifer Loveberry up front and Amy for helping out with all the extra work they've been doing with the election stuff. Been really busy. Okay. Everybody else good? Okay, so we are going to move on to the consent agenda. Oh,
Sorry, I really raised my hand.
That's right.
I just wanted to really quick, give a big thanks. I don't know, I know the board knows, but I don't know if the public knows. My daughter actually came really early. And that she came at 33 weeks. And so I've been off at the NICU. So I just wanted to say big thanks to Jennifer as well, and the staff there. I was by my phone and that for, when I could answer anything, but they were picking up the ends on that, picking up the ball on that one. So big thanks on that. And there may come a point in the meeting that I might have to pop out. So I just kind of wanted to give a heads up, just in case. I'm hoping that won't happen, but wanted to let you guys know. So that's all mine is. So.
thank you. The next item on the agenda is the consent agenda.
Make a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented.
Or,
Motion by trustee Monkey, seconded by Hauk.
And I will note that both our last meeting, which we did not have, I did review the payables or warrants for that meeting, and the ones for this meeting. Both were in our packets this time, but everything looked in order to me.
Okay, let's go to roll call. Trustee Milky,
Yes.
trustee Worley,
Yes.
trustee Lannon,
Yes.
trustee Hauk,
yes,
treasurer Rice,
Yes.
clerk Cody, yes. Consent agenda passes. Next item on our agenda is new business. It is A, his discussion action Smith adoption of the McGurk subdivision paving special assessment district resolution number 2, and set the date for the first of 2 public hearings to be held on November 24th, 2020 at 7 p.m. for the establishment of a paving special assessment district.
I'll just provide a little bit of background on this. The board's been working on this item for a little bit of time. At your August 12th meeting, you approved resolution number 1, which instructed staff to get some cost estimates and do some other work. We've completed that. And we're ready now to bring to you for your consideration resolution number 2. This resolution tentatively is declaring the Board of Trustees' intention to make the improvement. It's tentatively designating the special assessment district. And it's also setting a date and time for the first of at least 2 public hearings. And as it was indicated a moment ago, that public hearing would be held, you adopt this resolution, on November 24th at 7 p.m. for the process to continue moving forward. The cost estimate for the work is $82,135 and some change. It is 10% over the estimate that we got from the road commission. This work would not be done until next construction season. It would be subject to bids that the road commission would obtain at that time. So we needed to build in a bit of cushion. There are some fees also as part of the total cost of $82,000. They are structured in a way that comports with the policy that the board adopted a couple months ago. It does not include any staff time that's been working on this issue. The estimate of $82,000 is lower than the estimates that you've been seeing. They were closer to $92,000, I think, before tonight. The per lot front footage based on this estimate is $2,566. So if the board is, the paperwork for this starts on page 73 of your agenda. You'll see a map of the special assessment district. You'll see the Union Township's cost estimate with some detail there. You'll also see the cost estimate that we received from the road commission that then we bumped up a bit. Be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Trustee Melky?
Yes, thank you. Mark, just kind of curious. I mean, this is the first assessment district that your special assessment district you're doing under the new policy. Is it your intention to still track internal costs for staff? I mean, I know that was a practice you were doing before, but will you continue to do that?
I don't think so.
Okay.
We have no reason to track it other than curiosity. I suppose there's an argument that could be made that we would track it just to see how much money we are, spending on this in the event the board wanted to reconsider that policy.
That was my only thought, was that, I mean, I don't want to add more work, but, if we took the opportunity to have some data over a period of time to say, okay, this is the boots hitting the ground or the rubber hitting the road, right? Of the internal costs that we're seeing, and do we like the policy that we put into effect? So I was just kind of curious with that. I was happy to see the costs. I think this is a reasonable cost for this neighborhood, and I understood the 10% increase because of floating into the next construction season. So in your mind, that's plenty of leeway for what we'll see for road costs next year?
Yeah, we're comfortable with this recommendation.
Thank you. I'm all set. Thank you, Chair.
Trustee Lanning?
Yes, thank you. Mr. Manager, just curious, if we do the adoption of this special assessment and go through a couple public hearings and then get into a bid next construction season, and that amount becomes more than what the 51% or more of the neighborhood is willing to pay, is there an obligation on their part that they must build, or could they choose not to go ahead with the overlay?
I'm not sure how I'd have to research a little bit how you would unwind a special assessment district that you've approved. I don't think it's particularly straightforward. I know there's language in the act that allows for increasing the amounts by rule if it's less than, I want to say, a 5% increase. And I don't know, Kim, if you have a better answer than my non-answer.
I don't have a better answer if they would be able to totally abandon it. I'm not sure. I'd have to look into that as well, Tim.
Okay, so I'm hearing if we go through all the motions, they're potentially committed to whatever that price comes out at.
Yes.
Can I,
Trustee Milky?
Thank you.
following up on Trustee Lannon's comments, but I believe the petition that the neighborhood signed where they got 51% at least of the property owners, they were looking at about the $90,000 range in that, correct? I mean, so we'd have to go over by quite a bit.
Yeah, we'd have to go over by quite a bit for it to be above what they had originally signed for. But keep in mind that you're passing these resolutions and at the cost it is today. So that's the not to exceed number at this point.
Correct. But yes. It would be hard for, they're not gonna be shocked by anything because they signed a petition for more than what we're suggesting or what we're creating the special assessment district at.
Trustee Lanham?
Yeah, so I just wanted to be clear, nothing surprises me today. Prices could spike up. I hear a lot of financial economic hardship with people as of recent, so people's situations could change. So I was just interested in what kind of commitment someone is going to be held to.
I will research how you'd unwind this prior to taking bids.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mark. I'd entertain a motion.
I'd make a motion for adoption of a Dirk subdivision paving special assessment district resolution number 2 and set the date for the first of 2 public hearings to be held on November 24th, 2020 at 7 p.m. for the establishment of a paving special assessment district.
Support.
Was that Milky that supported it?
I know I was one, but I don't know if I was first.
I heard a couple.
Go ahead and take it, Brian. Yeah.
Okay, motion by Lannon, support by Milky. Roll call. Treasurer Rice.
Yes.
Clerk Cody, yes. Trustee Worley.
Yes.
Trustee Lannon.
Yes.
Okay. Trustee Hauk.
Yes.
Trustee Milky.
Yes.
Okay, 6-0, all yes. Motion passes. Okay, the next item we have on our agenda is discussion action Smith adoption of sanitary sewer rate plan resolution in accordance with the state of Michigan stormwater assessment management wastewater SAW grant requirements.
This paperwork begins on page 81 of your packet. In August of 2017, the township was awarded a SAW grant in the amount of $429,000 and some change. One of the conditions of accepting that grant is the completion of the sanitary sewer rate methodology plan. And that plan, the purpose of the plan is to identify if any gap exists between revenues and expenditures in particular years. If there is a gap identified, then we have to present a 5-year plan to eliminate that gap. In February of 2020, that's when we began the engagement with Utility Financial Services, Don Lund's firm. And we completed the full cost of service study for the water operation, for the sewer operation. In conjunction with those studies, we also had the SAW grant rate methodology plan created. We reviewed it in one of those meetings that we had with her over the summer. Calls for a rate increase of 5.1% for 2021. And that's why I mentioned that amount in your 21 budget presentation. So we need this resolution, which is supporting this plan, to be considered, hopefully approved. I do want to emphasize that it is a plan. We review this gap, if there is one, every year. So in a particular year, rates may go up or or theoretically down, but that's not likely, by a different amount than 5.1%, but an annual 5.1% increase in this year over the next 5 years would eliminate that gap. It is just a plan.
Do we have any questions for Mark or Kim? Trustee Melky.
Thank you. Just one easy question, I think, to our manager, or I guess whoever is best to answer that. On page 81 at the bottom, you list first year recovery. Unless I missed it, my assumption is that's the amount of gap that's being closed. Is that accurate?
That's correct.
Thank you.
Shannon?
Yes, thank you. Mr. Manager, I was curious if you could tell me when we realized how far back we have had a gap. Do we know that data?
I do not. I'd have to look into that to find out.
Okay. Thank you.
Do we have any other questions?
I'd make a motion for adoption of the sanitary sewer rate plan resolution in accordance with state of Michigan stormwater asset management wastewater SAW grant requirement.
Support. Norm.
Brian,
So motion by Lannon, support by Worley.
Yeah.
Okay, let's do the roll call. Trustee Melky,
Yes.
Trustee Worley,
yes.
Comments?
Trustee Lannon,
Comments? Discussion?
Discussion.
oh, we just had questions. Okay, let's go with that. Any discussion?
Yeah, please. Typically, there's discussion after a motion's made. I would just mention, I'd like to comment and just indicate that I think this is a very important and important grant for the township to have. It spurred us to get a study done and understand how bad we're bleeding or not bleeding on our rates for the water. But it secured nearly $430,000 for the completion of the sanitary sewer asset management plan. So well done on everyone who worked on getting that working on that grant. And encouraging to see that it's paid out, and we will not be bleeding on that in 5 years and protecting those assets. Thank you.
Any other comments or discussion for this item? Anyone? Okay, now we're gonna do the roll call. Trustee Melky,
Yes.
trustee Worley,
Yes.
trustee Lannon,
Yes.
treasurer Rice,
Yes.
clerk Cody, yes. Okay, the next item we have is item C. Discussion action stool dryer. Rec authorities, articles and resolution add clause that is void if both school and city don't approve. Mark, can you give us a little information on this?
Sure. What's being asked is that you consider approval of the Mid-Michigan Aquatic Recreational Authority, Isabella County, Michigan resolution to adopt articles of incorporation. Paperwork begins on page 93 of your agenda packet. You may recall that a subcommittee that was formed at the direction of the governing bodies of Union Township, City of Mount Pleasant School District. Subcommittee was formed to study this issue. We met for about a year. A presentation was made to a joint meeting of all three entities in mid-September. In order to continue to move the project, the idea, the vision forward, the next step is the adoption of this resolution, which by definition approves these articles of incorporation. The Mount Pleasant School District considered this item at their October 19th meeting. They approved it. The City of Mount Pleasant considered it at their meeting this past Monday. It was approved by that governing body. The resolution must be adopted by all three entities for it to have effect. There was a requirement that the articles be published in the Morning Sun, which it was. If created, it would be an independent authority standing on its own. Legal authority, it could be sued, it can sue. It has the authority with the vote of the people to levy up to 1 mil in property taxes. This, in my mind, this action enables the vision to continue to be worked. It really becomes up to the authority to put a fine pencil to paper. There was a study done by the Swim Friends of Mid-Michigan a couple of years ago that suggests strongly that there's sufficient demand for an aquatic center. And then if the fees are appropriately set, that revenue is sufficient to fund those operations, would need the millage that I think at the time was projected to be something resembling 0.8 of a mil to generate sufficient funds to repay the debt that would need to be issued to build and construct the facility. There is the full report, the full committee reports in your agenda packet. We also have in the audience tonight, in the event you have any questions, and it's certainly to show support, Miss Nancy Ridley, the city manager, City of Mount Pleasant city manager, and Miss Jennifer Verlager, the superintendent of the school district, and also with us, Miss Lisa Diaz, who is an integral member of the committee and the driving force behind the Swim Friends of Mid-Michigan group. I'd be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Trustee Melky?
Oh, I still have my hand up? I actually do have a comment.
Thank
though.
you.
Let me lower my hand. I'll just make a comment. This is an awesome project, and I want to thank all those that have brought us to this point. I know this isn't necessarily a township thing. Mark, thank you for being part of the board that did this, but I know many others brought us to where we're at. I did, in reviewing it, I just want to state for the record, I still have one issue with the actual articles. I am in support of them. But with regards to, in the unlikely event that we actually levy, the voters vote for this, let me be clear to the public that very little tax dollars have been spent to date, right? This is a project where ultimately the funds we brought together and raised by this, authority, and it'll be the voters ultimately decide whether or not this is something we want for our community. And but in the event that we actually levy taxes, and for some reason something doesn't ultimately go through, and we have a dissolution of the authority without success, I want to state for the record that I would be in full support of not assigning that to our general fund, as the articles say, but finding a way to give that back to the taxpayers, because they're going to be approving this money for a specific purpose. But with that, I'm in very much support of this. So thanks for all the work that's been put into it.
Trustee Lannon? Did you have a question?
For Lana?
Yes.
Yes. So just for clarity, I agree totally with what Brian had said, but just looking at our agenda, it talks about supporting this rec authority with an added clause that it's void if both school and city don't approve. Is that, do you know, Mark, agreed? Is that just being brought forth by the township?
No, that was part of that's language in the resolution that was adopted by both the school and the city. You know, nobody knew who was going to go first. So, and you know, if somebody went first and another body didn't approve it, we just needed clarity that it's self-voided.
Great, thanks. Well, I
Any other
make a motion to approve the Mid-Michigan Aquatic Recreational Authority, Isabella County, Mid-Michigan resolution to adopt articles of incorporation.
Before we have a motion, does anybody else have any questions? Trustee Hauk?
Well, I'll wait until discussion.
Okay,
Support.
have a motion and support, a motion by Lannon, support by Milky. And discussion, Trustee Hauk?
Yes, so right now, we're just approving to join the other two entities. Then everything, after this is all approved and everything, then research will start, right? Where we look into land, we look into building costs. The only reason I say that is because I took time today, like I usually do, and I called a few residents. And I talked to 8 different people today. Half were for it, half were, not that nobody's not for it, but people were just saying with everything going on right now. I mean, I can read names if you want, they don't care.
Let's not.
One guy said he's 50-50 for it. He said he could see it, but with everything that's going on right now, we're trying to recover. Businesses are trying to recover. Residents are trying to recover from COVID, every shutdown, all the layoffs, whatever. Another lady said it's a wonderful idea. But we have other areas that we could spend money on right now, roads, sidewalks, parks. And she wondered what the upkeep would be on it when it was built. And I just told her that we don't know any of this stuff yet, because right now we're just talking about getting on board to form an authority to look into it, a group to look into it. So,
And if I may,
yeah,
you're correct, Trustee Hauk. This action will formally create the authority, which is a legal body.
right,
It will also approve these articles of incorporation, which will set the high level rules under which the authority can act and conduct itself. But it's the work of the authority that's really going to determine if this center becomes a reality or
right,
not.
right. And that's what I told people.
That's right.
Okay.
Okay, trustee Melky?
But by creating the authority, we give it some formal standing. It'll be easier for the authority and the interested parties to say begin fundraising,
Yeah,
that kind of thing.
Yeah, I wanted to follow up on that and a clarification as well. I tried to state that once this authority is formed, it's not a township kicking in a bunch of money for an aquatic center or anything like that. This is the authority having to raise the money. And they're proposing doing that through various means as well as a potential levy. And I'm assuming that because of the cost, that this will not succeed without the voters deciding whether or not they want to move forward on this. And that's why I'm very supportive of this, because it's up to the voters, and the voters can decide whether or not this is something they want to pay 0.8 mils for, or whatever the ultimate levy rate is. So this was not going to cost the township anymore at this point.
Any other discussion? Okay, let's do the roll call. Treasurer Rice,
Yes.
clerk Cody, yes. Trustee Hauk,
yes,
trustee Lannon,
Yes.
trustee Worley,
Yes,
trustee Melky.
Yes.
Motion passes 6-0. All yes.
Well, thank you. And I just will comment, since we are the last ones to approve the article. This is exciting. That there's a lot of people that want to begin work on this. Appreciate the support from all the governing bodies, from the members of the subcommittee. The next task for the Board of Trustees and the other governing bodies will be to make appointments to the authority. And that will be a very important step along the way. It's my sense that the initial authority members are going to be real key to where this goes next. So you should begin to start thinking about good appointments to this authority. So, thank you.
Thank you, everyone, for taking the time putting all this together. Thank you. Okay, the next item on our agenda is D. Discussion action, Nanny, to introduce and conduct the first reading for the proposed new Municipal Ordinance Violations Bureau ordinance.
So I'll just give you a little background on this. Paperwork begins on page 130 of your agenda packet. The existing ordinance was adopted or last amended in 1999. And the recommended ordinance reaffirms that the township has the authority to issue municipal civil infraction notices and civil infraction citations for violations of certain components of our ordinances. It reaffirms that the Ordinance Bureau can only accept payment of fines and fees from individuals that have affirmatively have admitted that they are in violation of the ordinance. This is not a adjudication body or exercise. It does identify several positions within the organization that are authorized to issue and serve these notices and or whether they're infraction or citations. Township manager, the community economic development director, building official, zoning administrator, rental inspector, and other ordinance officials as appointed by the township manager. Any other law enforcement entity with jurisdiction in the township could also issue these notices. The existing ordinance has a schedule of fines and costs embedded within the ordinance. The recommended ordinance changes that, and it references the fines and costs per a schedule, a resolution adopted by the board. We do that annually as part of our budget adoption process. In the FY21 recommended budget, there is a schedule of fines and costs for the Municipal Ordinance Violation Bureau. We've been using the old existing bureau. We've issued a couple violation notices. Didn't get some payment, but our review suggested a couple changes be made. We have had this reviewed by the city attorney or the township attorney as well. Be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Anyone have any questions?
I'll make a motion to introduce and conduct the first reading for the proposed new municipal ordinance violations bureau ordinance.
Support.
Oh, I don't know which one. Let's go with Trustee Lannon.
Thank you. Curious, it seems like in the past I came across sales representative that the township was a member of, and it seems to me it was the municipal ordinance violation. Is this something designed by the township, or is this in fact a group outside of the ordinance that we maybe pay an annual fee to be a part of? The group that developed this?
No, I have no idea what you're speaking of.
Okay,
This is a township ordinance. It's our ordinance. We're not part of a consortium, if you will, of some communities pool resources and share in our part of certain enforcement, like building official authorities, that kind of thing.
okay, thanks.
And it looks like Mr. Nanny may have a comment on this.
I do. I think what Trustee Landon might be referring to is the Muni Code, the Municipal Code Corporation,
It is,
which is
yep.
the body that codifies our ordinances and hosts them online. It doesn't have anything to do with ordinance enforcement. It simply provides a means for tracking ordinances and making them publicly available.
So we are in fact still a member of that group and pay an annual fee to them?
Yes, they host our ordinances. In fact, just worked with them on getting the ordinances that we've adopted this year up on their site and all codified. That's in process right now.
That's a body that codifies and compiles the book of ordinances. It has nothing to do
Making them.
with drafting ordinances or enforcing existing ordinances. It's just because organizations like cities and townships end up with ordinance books that are a foot thick, and you may do an amendment to section, so you got to remove page 2 of the old and insert page 2A and that kind of thing. That's all that's going on there.
Okay,
Thanks for that clarification.
I believe Trustee Milky had his hand up next.
Yeah, I just want to say thank you, thank you, thank you. I've had an issue with this ordinance since 2013. I've probably brought it up a dozen times in board meetings, talked to staff many times, talked to trustees many times. I'm so thrilled, and I'm assuming, Mr. Nanny, that this is your work, and I'm thrilled that you brought it, one, to comply with current code, and you addressed, and I don't know if this came from conversations or not, but you addressed the biggest issue I had, which was section 7. And the fact that you removed this out and brought this into a fee schedule that can be done by resolution on an annual or whenever needed basis, I can't tell you how grateful and excited and thrilled I am. It's hard to show that in a Zoom meeting. If we were in person, I'd be jumping up and down, but I am thrilled. So thank you so much.
Welcome.
Trustee Hauk?
Brian just meatloafed me. You know the song, "You Took the Words Right Out of My Mouth" by Meatloaf? There you go, Brian.
I definitely feel the same way on this one. As both of them. Okay, so any other questions or comments? Okay, we will do a roll call. Let's go with Trustee Hauk,
Yes.
Trustee Lannon,
Yes.
Treasurer Rice,
Yes.
Trustee Worley,
Yes.
Trustee Milky,
All capitals, YES, yes.
Clerk Cody, yes. All right, the next item on the agenda is E, discussion action, stool dryer, policy governance 2.5, financial condition and activities.
Thank you. This is the quarterly review of governance policy 2.5, titled Financial Condition and Activities. The policy is a little long. I'll just read the highest level policy statement that says, with respect to actual ongoing financial condition and activities, the township management team shall not cause or allow the development of fiscal jeopardy or a material deviation of actual expenditures from board priorities established in your ends policies. And then it goes on to enumerate a half a dozen things that shall not occur per policy, such as failing to maintain adequate cash flow, aggressively pursuing receivables, using long-term reserves except as authorized by the board through budget action, those kind of things. We interpret this policy to mean that the board, that the resources that the board is allocating should be devoted towards the accomplishment of your ends policies. You know, that's kind of the bottom line. And we have a series of data points that we suggest indicates that we're in compliance with this policy. Annually, I report out the work that we're doing towards your ends. We have that. We did fill a position that you approved the creation of, a full-time accounting specialist position that was filled in August, which will improve our ability to monitor finances and prevent deviation from the policies. No new debt was acquired in the third quarter. Budget amendments were made in July. Budget amendment number 1 was done in July to make sure we're operating within our budget. No long-term fund reserves were used. All payroll taxes and benefits are paid timely. All tax receipts paid timely and in comporting with state statute. No emergency purchases were made that if they were, they would have been reported to you under separate cover. The only real property that was acquired was done with board approval, that being the Jonathan Lane properties from the county's tax foreclosure process. So we feel we are in compliance. But again, this is an opportunity for the board to review and comment and provide feedback to the management team.
Trustee Melky.
Oh, I hit it by accident. Sorry, I have nothing.
Trustee Lannan.
Thank you. So board, this is our opportunity to look at our policy governance documentation and consider things that may be lacking in them and expand on them or delete or change them. So a couple thoughts that I had that I wanted to bring before the board and talk about. And actually, first question is for our manager. So it starts out in that first paragraph talking about the township management team, which includes the manager and the treasurer, clerk, and supervisor. Just curious if we have any sort of schedule, if the management team has a meeting schedule, or if in fact they do get together and meet, as this would kind of indicate that there's a discussion and collaboration.
Well, the clerk and the manager meet together.
Does the management team meet?
All together? No.
There is not a recurring scheduled meeting between the management team. There is a lot of collaboration meetings that are held informally and formally throughout the year on a whole host of issues, operational, financial, and they often include other folks from throughout the organization as well as appropriate.
Thank you. My next thought was in reference to the data on page 138. It says no real property was acquired or disposed of that wasn't approved by the board, and the manager mentioned Jonathan Lane. So when you go to page 1 under 2.5.8, under the shall not, it says acquire, encumber, or dispose of real property. So that seems to be a conflict there. So I'm wondering if maybe we should add to 2.5.8 without board approval verbiage, which would kind of take away any conflict there in my mind. Any thoughts, board?
I agree.
Yeah, I agree too, Kim. I think that sounds good.
So this is referring to the management team, and it says the board of trustees actually did it, not the management team.
correct. The board at a meeting approved appropriations for purchase of that Jonathan Lane parcel.
So the Board of Trustees did the purchase, not the management team.
Correct.
That's the way I'm reading it, right?
But you're just suggesting, Tim, that just gives a little more flexibility. You can acquire, encumber, or dispose without board approval or with board approval. So you're just by adding that in there, just gives us more flexibility and control. I think that makes sense.
I'm saying that that's something that says we shall not do is
Right.
acquire real property, and we did. But it
Board of
was,
Trustees did, not the management team.
Correct.
I mean, technically, we're still following the rules and following the policy governance.
Yeah, I understand what you're saying, clerk, and I don't disagree with either of you. I think it's a clarification. Because you're right. I don't think there's a violation here because it's the board that did it. But having it clearly spelled out that if the board allows it, then it's okay. Then I think that's a good thing to have.
Correct.
Just
I
as,
agree with
Add
you,
that
Lisa.
sentence.
just as it applies to 2.5.8.
I mean, the way I read it, it is worded correctly because the management team didn't get it or the manager. It was the Board of Trustees that approved it. I mean, so that's how I would read it personally. I'm not understanding what you guys are saying is wrong with it.
Yeah, I think, Tim, what you're saying is on 2.5.8, acquire, encumber, or dispose of real property, and then comma, maybe without board approval? Is that what you're wanting to put in there?
that was my thought to
Yeah.
talk to you guys about.
Yeah, I understand that, yeah.
It's not my decision. I'm just bringing it forward for the board.
No,
to
yeah,
do.
I think it's a good suggestion, yeah.
Yeah, I think it's implied, and I think that's where Lisa's coming from. It's
Yeah.
implied that you can't do this, period.
You're not gonna do it unless, you know, and the board,
Unless the board does it, right? But
Okay,
it's,
so that, yeah,
both ways, yeah.
but I'm always for more clarity.
Yeah, I agree.
I mean, it's clear on my end, but if you think it's needs more clarity, because this is, you know, it's the management team. And it says, you know, the management team will not acquire, you know, or dispose or whichever.
Well, actually, what it says, if you
I
go
mean,
up,
am I reading it wrong?
it says further, without limiting the scope of the foregoing by this enumeration, he or she shall not acquire, encumber, or dispose of real property. So I'm prohibited from doing it. And if
Yeah,
I do,
that's- That's how I'm reading it.
violation of the policy. But
It was confusing to me, so I'm bringing it to the board and asking their thoughts.
I'm reading it how it's stated where we're not, or, you know, the management team or manager is not gonna, you know, purchase or acquire, encumber, or dispose of real property. Like I said, the board did it, not the management team or manager. So I don't see it need to be clarified, but if you would like it to be, it's okay with me.
In a sense, Tim, I agree with what Lisa's saying too, but I think going into the original, you know, this whole thing is without board approval. I mean, all these are shall nots. So if the management team wanted to do something that's a shall not, they would have to come before the board and get permission to be able to do that. So,
Correct.
so it seems to me, your particular thing about without board approval, really it would cover all these items, not just that one in particular.
Agreed.
Right.
Would
That's it both ways.
on the
Does
other
that make
things.
sense? I mean, and if you're gonna put in without board approval, then you can put that further without limiting the scope of the foregoing by this enumeration, he or she shall not, comma, without board approval, boom. And that covers everything going down because all these are shall nots. not just that one item.
Um,
And we
Actually-
were the ones, the board is the one that, the management team brought that to us as a proposal. We were, as a board, we're the ones that, in a sense, overrode the shall not and decided to go ahead and purchase the property for the reasons that we did.
okay, so terrific. If that's what the board agrees to. This board,
Sorry.
it needs to be clear for future boards too. And so if you guys agree that how it is great, then I'm fine with that. I was just bringing it forward that to me, there seemed to be a conflict in thought there.
I just think that you added in that one, in the beginning paragraph at that last sentence, he or she shall not, comma, without board approval. So it's all shall nots, and the only way that could be done would to override that would be for the Board of Trustees to give approval to that particular issue, as we did with Jonathan Lane.
From my point of view, yeah, Norm, you bettered my suggestion because that becomes all inclusive for every point.
Correct. It becomes the umbrella for everything.
Yes.
So that's where I would put it. I would think that makes, I think you have a great idea there. And I think it does then give a little bit more specificity. It also allows for any one of those conditions to be overridden if the board were to approve it. So
And that second point is the one I'm very supportive of as well.
yes,
Okay,
That
so if
is
somebody
not-
wants to make a motion to change this, we could change it right now.
well, if you want to, Tim, want to your idea, so why don't you make a motion?
I would make a motion to add verbiage to policy 2.5 financial condition and activities to include in the first paragraph under policy wording,
After he shall not,
if that's the appropriate spot, then
yes,
at the end of that paragraph to add he or she shall not without board approval.
Perfect. I support.
so motion by Lannon and support by Worley to add without board approval on the end of 2.5 policy wording after he or she shall not.
Correct. The main paragraph.
Okay. Any more discussion on this? Okay, let's do a vote. Trustee Hauk,
Yes.
trustee Lannon,
Yes,
clerk Cody, yes, trustee Monkey,
Yes.
trustee Worley,
Yes.
and treasurer Rice.
Yes.
Okay, do we have any more comments or anything on this item?
Just that I think that we run a very tight ship, and I think that we're in complete compliance with this. And again, compliments to our manager, to the managerial staff, as well as our entire staff. I'm just always impressed with how well run and how well oiled this ship is. So we're doing a good job. So thank you.
And I'll just jump in too. Thank you, Norma. I agree with what you said. And I checked all yeses. I felt we were in compliance. And to be honest, this was an easy one for me to fill out. I never even sat and pondered too much on any of the questions because I felt we were in compliance.
And again, Tim, I think your idea was a good one by adding that, because it also allows what we did by overriding it. It gives permission to do so. So I think that was a real good suggestion. So thank you.
thank you.
Okay, on to our next item, F. Discussion action, Board of Trustees, Board approval, annual review of board policy governance, number 4.3, delegation to township manager and management team. There we go, right?
This review is just the opposite of what you just went through. This is where the board reviews compliance, reviews your own compliance with your policy before you were reviewing whether or not the manager and the management team was compliant. Now you're reviewing whether or not you are compliant with the policies that are applicable to the board. And again, this is policy 4.3. It's an annual review titled Delegation, Township Manager, Management Team. Again, there's some sub pieces to it, but at its highest level says the board will instruct the township manager and the management team through written policies which prescribe the organizational ends to be achieved and describes organizational situations and actions to be avoided, which are the limitation policies, one of which you just reviewed. You know, the limitation policies are all of section 2.2. So you've created those that place the limits on the management team. And then articulating policies that allow for the township management to use any reasonable interpretation of your policies. So this is where you're kind of bringing the whole policy document together. So this is a discussion amongst the board as it relates to your own activities and actions.
Okay, does anyone have any comments or anything on this one?
I would just say that I think that what this suggests is the importance of our policy governance and the fact that we're constantly doing reviews of different sections on a regular basis to see if we are in adherence. And we, even tonight here, we're making a change to provide further clarity for what it is that we're trying to accomplish. So I think this speaks both of the importance of our policy governance and why it's so important that we as a board have continued to reference it and show our support of the policy governance.
Trustee Lannon?
Should raise my hand.
Yeah, thank you. I do believe we are in compliance, but this is, again, another grammatical thought that I wanted to bring forward. And under the paragraph 4.3.1, the first paragraph under accordingly. And this is to me, so I'm looking to you guys to help clarify for me. Where it says, beginning in the first sentence, certain results for certain recipients at a specified cost.
Which one are you reading, Ken?
4.3.1, he said.
So
It's after township manager.
So it starts out, the board will develop policies instructing the township manager to achieve certain results for certain recipients at a specified cost. Now, when we developed that, there was probably some rationale for that verbiage, and it's probably very clear. But recently reading this through again, to me, where it starts certain results for certain recipients at a specified cost, to me sounds exclusionary, as opposed to for the common good and well-being of all. So if anybody can re-enlighten me on coming up with that language, and if it is rock solid and should stand, or if we should think a little bit more about that.
Trustee Milky?
I wish I had something to offer you there, so I'll think about that, Trustee Lannon. I did want to comment. I felt we were in compliance. You know, something I think that we could do better as a board, and I think this will become very important, especially with, we have an election coming up in less than a week, and November 20th, there will be some new board members, is, you know, we review our ends typically once annually. And I think it would be helpful to make conscious effort to review those more often. In particular, the ends as you get into the budgeting process, because that's where you may want to direct staff to change focus in the budget on where money should be spent. The ends drive it all. And so I think we can be better at, this is 4.3.4, by the way, may change its ends and executive limitations policies. I think that's something that we need to be conscious of continually. And maybe it needs to be a very conscious effort to do it maybe biannually rather than annually. But I'll think of language for you, Tim, but I don't have anything at the moment. Thank you, Chair.
I believe we are in compliance with this one. Does anyone else have any comments?
No, I just wanted to reiterate, I think, Tim, you're right. It does seem exclusionary by the way that is worded. I don't think that was the intention, but I think that it could be interpreted that way. So you could have certain results for, the well-being of the residents at a specific cost, or something along those lines, but so including residents rather than certain recipients. I don't have the words yet. It's not flowing, but I do agree with you. It has a connotation. This has an intent there that's, I think, not meant to be.
I mean, it falls right in place how it's worded, I believe, with a special assessment district for the McGurk neighborhood for the paving.
Mhm.
But in general, if anybody reads our information, to me, that just jumps out as being exclusionary. So I just wonder if either additional verbiage or something could make that more palatable. Or
Treasurer Rice?
I mean, we could even take and, leave to achieve certain results for its recipients at a specified cost, like get rid of certain and put its. That way it's more broadened and it doesn't say, hey, these specific few. I mean, I don't know.
Or certain results for its residents, the specific cost.
Except, we may target something that's more economic development associated, and therefore maybe
Manager
not.
Still Dryer would like to speak.
Oh, excuse me.
I hear what you're trying to do. If you'd like, I could try to work on some language. I don't think you'll be able to arrive at anywhere tonight. I think, I mean, what I read is you have different customers receiving different services throughout the community. Not every customer, every taxpayer receives all the services. So, people that are taking advantage of the water system are paying particular rates. They're bearing certain costs that the general taxpayer is not. The planning department is servicing a subset of your constituency, and I think that's what this is trying to get at, or at least recognize. Otherwise, you'd have, for instance, no fees, and the general taxpayer would just pay for everything, whether they ever used it or not. So I think you want to, like I said, I can take a stab at some language. I hear your exclusionary piece. I'm not confident yet that I'd be particularly successful, but I'm guessing I could give something to you more effectively than you all trying to work it out right here.
Sounds good.
That's good. I was going to suggest that, Mark, but I'm glad you. They're good at this.
Okay, any more questions or comments? Trustee Hauk?
Yeah, it looks like we're getting ready to end all this. I just have a question for Kim Wright, or Kim Smith. Back on the consent agenda, Kim, do we need to do anything with that water franchise agreement?
You approved it.
We approved it in the consent agenda. I didn't know if we needed to discuss any of it.
No,
It's already approved.
All right,
Okay,
just
so
want to make sure.
we are going to extended public comment restricted to 5 minutes regarding any issue. This is an opportunity for comments only. Questions to the board will not be answered at this time. For specific answers to questions, call at 989-772-4600. If you'd like to make a comment, raise your hand. Click on the participants icon at the bottom of your screen. Next, click the raise your hand icon near the bottom right corner of the screen. To raise your hand for the telephone dial-in participants, press *9. Opening public comment at 8:55. I don't see any hands. I have to scroll down to see it. Sorry about that. We will close public comment at 8:55. Manager comments. Mark?
Thank you. Just let the board know all our parks facilities, restrooms have been closed. Hydrant flushing is in process. As we did with the August primary, Township Hall will be closed to normal public business on election day. The front door will be locked. Entrance to the polls will be through the side door. People will exit through the front door. I am in some preliminary discussions with Ms. Sue Radwin regarding some policy governance. I don't want to say training, maybe introduction. We have a new board coming on. So I think it's appropriate. And I think it might have been Trustee Lannon mentioned it earlier that traditionally we have the new board take action affirming policy governance, but in all fairness, they need to understand a little bit about it before we ask them to affirm it. So I'm trying to figure out what we can do in that area. And that's all I have. Thank you.
Okay, final board comments. Anyone have a comment? You want to raise your hand? Trustee Hauk?
Oh, go ahead, Norm.
go ahead, Bill. Go ahead.
Oh, I just had a question. On that water main break on Lincoln Road, whatever happened there? How did that happen? We were told there was a water main break, but we were never told how it happened.
Do you want me to answer that, Mark?
Yes, please.
A contractor was putting in some fiber optic and they drilled through the water main.
Oh, okay. And it wasn't marked in that area?
It was
or-
marked.
Oh, okay. We never heard what happened.
Yeah, I meant to follow up and let you know how it happened. At the time, I didn't know the answer, and I
Yeah.
follow that up.
I see the guys worked late. They did a good job cleaning it up and everything. I was working at the animal hospital and kind of saw a lot of it, so. But
I've asked,
good job putting it.
related to that, I've asked for data to invoice the excavator for the time and energy and expense we paid after they broke it, and we'll see what happens with that, but
Yeah.
I'm giving that consideration.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, Trustee Worley?
Yeah, I have a little bit lengthy thing I'd like to have comments about tonight. And it's in regard to the pandemic. And I think in terms of how we seem to be letting our guard down as things seemingly are getting much worse. There's three things: masks, distance, and sanitize. And it seems pretty simple. And yet I don't understand how these three things have become so controversial and divisive. And I'm saying this for the public, if anyone is on tonight, or maybe if they're going to be watching this on MTV, just to be more thoughtful about some of the factors that go into this. I think that part of the problem is I think the facts have become minimized, they've become trivialized, and they've become politicized. And I think a lot of this has been fueled by inaccuracies, misinformation, disinformation, and distortion. And yet, it seems that as we remain divided over the facts and the impact of coronavirus, it literally is now running rampant throughout the United States. 42 states today are reported that they're currently experiencing increasing spikes in reported confirmed cases, deaths, and hospitalizations. Our national numbers are alarming. As of 6:45 tonight, the last time I could get the most recent numbers, currently we have 8,837,688 confirmed positive cases. And with that, we have 227,421 people that have died. In the last week, there's been a spike of 500,000 new confirmed cases of coronavirus in just the past week. We're now averaging, in the past week, 70,000 new confirmed cases and 800 deaths per day. 70,000 new confirmed cases and 800 deaths per day. And when we look at these numbers, I think there's a part of it getting a little bit, inoculated to these numbers. But each one of these deaths represents losing a loved one. It's husbands and wives, moms and dads, brothers and sisters, aunts and uncles, grandmas, grandpas, brothers, friends, neighbors, coworkers, and so forth. So these numbers, if you think about them, they're just not numbers. Each one of them represents a life. And the pandemic, I think, ripples throughout our lives right now, leaving carnage, grief, and despair in its wake. It is now spreading at the fastest rate since the pandemic started. Yet, the most effective interventions that we know, masking, physical distancing, washing hands, avoiding large gatherings of people, limiting indoor activities, have become lines in the sand between adherence and noncompliance. And I think that's why our numbers keep on escalating. Where these strategies that I just mentioned, where these strategies have been fully implemented, there has been a noted decrease in the transmission of COVID-19. But when the courts rolled back the mandates of these interventions, or gatherings are held without appropriate precautions, surges of this virus usually follow, and they become super spreader events. So in essence, we're getting what we sow. So I've given a lot of thought to this because I find this so disturbing that we're allowing this to go the way it is. We need to see this not as a partisan issue. This is a public health crisis and a national security risk, period. And it affects all of us. And the approach that we should be looking at is a unified, comprehensive national policy. In the military, they talk about, in the military, it's the Band of Brothers. In the Band of Brothers, one for all for one. You leave no one behind, and you're making sacrifices to save the lives of others. So masking, physical distance, hand washing protects me and you if we both are following the same procedures, the same protocol. And they're simple. They're American and they're patriotic. And the safety and well-being of our residents of Union Township would be better served if we all agreed to follow these protocols. And lastly, remember, our lives are dependent upon this. And I think we have to get back to doing something as Americans, caring about one another. And if I have to wear a mask for the next year, I will wear a mask. Whatever will make someone else safer and myself safer, I think we need to all take a pause and reflect on what we can do to get through this pandemic together. Thank you.
Trustee Melky?
I hate following that. Norm, nicely said. I couldn't agree with you more. I think it's worth pointing out, I guess I'm going to piggyback on you a little bit. I wasn't planning this, but Isabella County is not alone in this. If you look back in April, May, back when we had the initial spike and the sky was falling, we were averaging about 2 cases a day in Isabella County. We're now averaging 17 a day. And this is way worse than it was back when we thought the sky was falling. And it is time for us to take charge of this as a society. And why we don't, it escapes me as well, Norm. I don't understand. Because it is within our grasp to be able to take some control over this, at least keep it at bay. In any event, I did want to make a comment about policy governance, but Mark, you kind of made me happy by indicating that you were reaching out to Sue Radwin. I wanted to make the point that it becomes really critical, as did Trustee Lannon, that the new board have a chance to review and learn about policy governance that we have in place, and look at those ends, because the new board may have different visions than this board has. And so I think it's important to look at those ends. So thank you.
Trustee Lannon?
Thank you. So this sitting board, I don't believe will be approving the 2021 budget that our manager has proposed to us. And I remember 4 years ago when this board came in, and that was one of their first challenges, was to approve it. And it created a lot of discussion because it was brand new to some of the board members. And so remembering that, and after the tenure that I've had with the Township Board, it's still not easy to fully comprehend what's being talked about when you're looking at numbers that seem like they're a revenue, but you see them in brackets, meaning they're a negative, and there's a lot that goes on. But anyways, I just wanted to, mostly for my benefit, but also whomever may benefit from it, run through and see if this is somewhat accurate. And I'm basically looking at our fee schedule in the 2021 budget, beginning on page 1. And my scenario basically is, if I was to build a $100,000 home in Union Township and need water service and sewer service, I'm trying to understand what that would cost me. So just in a quick rundown, it looks like a building permit, if I'm understanding it correctly, would be $125 plus $4 per thousand for an additional $400. So permitting is $525. And then I'd have a water hookup fee of $1,435. And I'm assuming that would be one REU, which would be $2,440. And then sewer would be $3,522 for the hookup. And then I would need a water meter at $575. And then there's a benefit fee of $2,400. And so if I'm picking the right numbers and calculating right, I'm looking at just shy of $11,000 to get this $100,000 house going in the township with the services we provide. But in the past, there was a lateral fee, and I don't know if there's still a lateral fee. I don't see it in the fee schedule. So I may have missed it. If anybody can help me out there.
This is final board comment, not questions.
Yeah, I know. I maybe could have waited till our last meeting, this board's last meeting, but
It's
I
a good
do
thing to think about. Yeah.
I get questions. So is that about accurate? $11,000 plus the inspection fees and things?
I'm not going to try to add up all that right now, but what I will do is report back to the board. If I heard your hypothetical correctly, you're basically wanting to know what are the fees to build a $100,000 home and get it hooked up to water and sewer?
Yeah.
Okay, I'll get that
Yep.
back to the board. And then I'll also, you had a question on laterals, so I'll include that in a response as well.
Okay, I appreciate that. And I would ask that for our next board meeting, if we could add something to the agenda for discussion. And it's going to have to do with township ownership of guns or firearms. The virtues of it either way. And that's been brought to us before when we talked about considered dedicated police services, and we would be providing uniforms, patrol cars, weapons, things like that. So I am just proposing to the board about having a discussion item about the thought of saying that the township would not own a firearm.
Okay, any other comments, Treasurer Rice?
Mine was just kind of when I had said thank you and that earlier.
I'm done. Thank you, Lisa.
I had left out Sherry and Mark and Amanda, and that I know they've had a lot as well that kind of got thrown on them from this. So just a big thank you to them as well. That's all.
Are you done? Okay, I have 3 comments. They're little comments. Just a thank you to the Water Sewer Department for working day and night on that water main break. They did a great job. For voters with COVID exposure who had planned on voting in the precincts, call your clerk's office. Call me at 989-772-4600 extension 229. We can work something out. We do have some procedures set for that. And the clerk's office is open October 31st from 8 a.m. to 4 p.m. for any last things that we need to do for referring to voting. So just the clerk's office, not the whole township. Clerk's office, register voters, things like that. Any other comments?
As long as we're having accolades, Lisa, I'd like to commend you and your deputy, and I know the staff that supported the amount of work that the mail-in ballots increases have given to you. I know it's overwhelming, and kudos to all you've put in to make it successful.
Okay. That being said, motion to adjourn,
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
support, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Bye, guys.
Bye, guys. Thanks.
And I,
Right.
Thank you, everybody, for coming.